before we start. The CMake I know was self-taught, and what I know may not be the best practice. The main reason I learned CMake was so that I could work with a friend that uses Windows while I use Linux. If you are okay with getting SDL and SDL image installed and set up in a CMake project on Windows, let's start. Timestamps are in the description below. We need 7-zip to install MinGW, so please make sure that is installed before we start. We will click on MinGW W64 builds, the option that is above MySys2, and we will go to that GitHub. The steps to install any of these versions are the same, so if one doesn't work, you may want to try another version. How I understand it, i686 is for 32-bit and x86 64 is for 64-bit. Unless you have a really old computer, I recommend using the x86 64. Next, I prefer POSIX to Win32 as I have used POSIX sockets before and know nothing about Win32. Lastly, a Stack Overflow post said to use SEH for newer machines, so I would recommend it for newer machines. More info about each of these choices and how I came to that decision is in the description below. The one I will be using is x86 64-12.2.0 release POSIX SEH. We can extract this folder here, and I'll be keeping the name the same in case we want to have multiple MinGWs in the future, so I'll be clicking this one. To keep this folder clean, we can delete this 7-zip file, press Windows E, split this to the right by pressing Win key right arrow, and then click on the downloads on the left. You can go into local disk C and add a new folder and call this MinGW. And this folder doesn't have to be on the C drive. However, for sake of consistency, I'm putting it in C as this is how I've always done it. We can go into this folder and copy over the extracted folder, the compiler. You can close out of this downloads, get this big, go into x86, MinGW, bin, and check to see that there's a G++, which there is. So we can go to this top bar and copy that path all the way up to bin. We press the Windows key, type environment variables, and this edit the system environment variables will pop up, hit enter. Go into environment variables, and here we choose either for our own user or for any users. And if there's just you on the computer, you can put it in either, it doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna put it in user variables for Herb, and then I'm gonna do a new, and paste this, and it's path that I clicked on. So I'm putting this into the path and then hitting OK, so this path, OK, OK, and now to check to make sure that we have it all set up, we press Windows R, type CMD, I've got this really big, so hopefully you can see, and then G++-V, and we can see it found something, so we have it all set up. If you don't have Git Bash already, you will want to get it, as this makes pulling down these different libraries much easier. So I'm going to download the latest for Windows, and then I'm going to do the 64 Windows setup. I'm going to run it, yes, and then click next. That's fine. I'm okay with all of these options. Next, I'm okay using Vim. I usually use NeoVim or Vim, so I'm going to keep this as is, but you can switch this to Visual Studio Code if that's what you like, or any other editor. Next, I'm going to use Git and optional Unix tools from command prompt, as I use Linux as my daily driver, so I'm most familiar with Linux commands, and this makes it so I can use those in my command prompt. Next, and then I'm going to use bundled OpenSSH, next, and I'm going to check out as is, commit Unix style line endings. Next, I'm going to use Windows default console window, the cmd.exe, next, and I'm just going to leave that as default, and that's fine. This is fine, and I'm good with all of these. I'm going to uncheck view release notes, click finish, and to test to make sure that it's actually installed, I'm going to press Windows R, type cmd, hit enter, and now I'm going to type git-v, and we can see it's installed. To install CMake, I'm going to do the Windows 64 installer, run that, and I'm okay with this. Next, accept, next, and I want to add CMake to the path, so make sure you do this. You can either add it for all users or for the current user. Either one works. I don't care, so I'll just click for all users. Next, and this is fine. Yes. And CMake is now installed. Again, we're going to press Windows R, CMD, CMake-V, CMake --version, whoops, and we can see that it is installed. I'm at SDL's current GitHub, and we just need this to get the code, copy the HTTPS, and then we can close out of this, press Windows R, CMD, and now I'm going to create a library folder where we store all of these libraries that we'll be installing, which for this video, it's just SDL and SDL image. So mkdir, programs, cd programs, cd programs, mkdir lib. And this is where I'm going to store all of these libraries that we install. So cd lib, or get to wherever you want to install your programs. It doesn't have to be this location. It can be anywhere. And now I'm going to clone down SDL from that URL we copied. So git clone, paste, enter. All right, now we cd into SDL. We mkdir build, cd build, and CMake --g, capital G, MinGW, capital M, capital GW, space, make files with an S. Hit enter. All right, we didn't get any errors. And one thing that I forgot to do that we need to do is rather than using a regular command prompt for this next step, we need to use an admin one. So I'm going to exit out of this. I'm going to press Windows R, CMD, Control Shift, Enter. And there's other ways you can open up the command prompt, but that's how I like doing it. Make this full screen. I'm going to cd back to the C directory, cd into users, and then cd herb. And then we go into programs, not printed, and then we go into lib. Now we go into the SDL and build. Here we type MinGW 32 make install. And if you have make, you can just type make install. MinGW32 make comes with the compiler, so you should have that if you installed the compiler the way we did at the beginning. Hit enter. One note when running make install, if you want to speed this up and you know how many cores you have, you can add -j to the end of make install and give it a number like 8 or 32 or however many cores you have, and it will compile this much faster. We've got SDL2 installed. We're going to do something similar for SDL image. However, some of the libraries SDL image depends on makes setting this up a bit more tricky. For sake of time, we're only going to be installing SDL image for PNGs. So we cd ... cd ... We're on SDL images GitHub. We can go to code, HTTPS, so we don't have to authenticate, copy that, and then go into our lib folder where we're storing our libraries, git, clone, paste, and enter. From here, we can cd into SDL image, what we just pulled down, git submodule, update, --init, --recursive. I don't know Git all that well, but I do know this pulls down all of the submodules that it has. Let's clear the screen. Now we can cd external, cd zlib, and pretty much do the same thing we did for SDL to install it. So mkdir build, cd build, CMake --g, MinGW, make files, and make install. And this time I'm going to pass J8, as I know I have 8 cores. If you don't know what cores are or how many you have, just leave off the -J8. And now I'm going to hit enter. Whoops, I meant to say MinGW32 -make. I have never seen the command prompt like this before, but it looks like it's fine. Let's go back 2 directories, so cd .. // I cleared the screen for this next part to make it a bit easier to follow. Let's go into libpng and repeat the same steps. So mkdir build, cd build, CMake --g, MinGW, make files. Now we cd .. cd .. and we're going to build this for SDL image. There's a slight difference, but mostly it'll be the same. So let's clear mkdir build, cd build, CMake --g, MinGW, make files, And as we didn't install the JPEG libraries, we will be turning JPEG off. So -d SDL2 image, all caps, underscore JPG equals off. I keep accidentally typing make out of habit, but now let's MinGW 32-make install-j, and then however many cores you have. And if you don't know how many, just leave this flag off, enter. SDL2 image should now be installed, so we will set up a temporary project. The GitHub for this project will be linked in the description. I'm going to now open a non-admin command prompt because we shouldn't be running the rest of this in an admin command prompt. I'm going to cd programs, and I'm going to make a directory, let's call it C++, and I'm going to make a new one called SDL, and one more where our project is, and we can say tutorial. The tutorial, and let's open this up in Visual Studio Code. Before we create any files, let's go to extensions and type CMake, and install this top one, CMake, and CMake language. We install those two, go back, and let's create a new file, CMakeListts.txt. We can close out of this install recommended extensions because we already have done that. And now we can get started by typing CMake minimum required and pass in version 3.10. And this is, from what I remember, a pretty common version. It might be 3.12 that's used now, but 3.10 works for what we want. We can come down and say project, and I'll call this tutorial. You can call it whatever you want. And then here, add executable is where we will put our CPP files. So we'll give the project name, which in this case is tutorial. And then I like entering it twice and typing each CPP file on its own line. So here we can say src main.cpp. Let's create this file now. So a new folder, source, which is how I've seen it commonly done in CMake. And then a new file, main.cpp. Let's say we want to have a functions.cpp in our src. We're not actually going to create it, but let's say that we do. How we would include it is saying src/functions.cpp, and that would then include it. We do not have to include header files, so keep that in mind. Next, we'll say if not png and win32 and not msvc. So what this all is saying is if we're using MinGW, so it's not Microsoft Visual Code, we're doing MinGW and we're on Windows, and there isn't a PNG library. So one of the issues that I've found with SDL image is when we install it, it cannot find the PNG library as they don't have a find PNG CMake package thing to find, which is really frustrating, but we can solve that pretty quick. And this might not be the best way to do it, but this is how it's worked for me. So we'll say set PNG library, and we'll give the path c/program files x86/libpng. And the reason why this might not be the best way is this is hard pathed. So if you installed libpng to a different directory, you'd have to change it to reflect that. But we won't worry about that for now, as this gets it to work if you just install it like we've gone through the tutorial to install it. Now we can copy and paste this png underscore include dir, and then we just give the include path, which is also the same path but with include here. And so this helps the package for SDL image find our PNG library. That's why we wrote those 4 lines. Now we come down here, we say find package SDL2 required, all caps, and then find package SDL image required. And these two just find both of those packages, and if they can't find it, if someone hasn't installed these packages, it won't let them compile and it'll throw an error, as we're assuming we need these packages or libraries in order to run the code. Now we create a new line and we say target include directories, and then we say tutorial, so our project name again, enter it twice, and then here we say public $, SDL2 include Dirs, and public $SDL2 image include Dirs. Now all this is saying is we need the headers in order for our compiler to know kind of what functions we're calling or that we can call. And this is just loading in all of those headers for us. Another thing we can do is we can create another line saying public and include if we want to include our own headers. So we create a new folder and we say include here, and let's create a new file. Let's create a header and call it functions.hpp. You don't have to do this. This is just for an example. If we have our include dir here, then how we include it in main.cpp is we can say hash include and then functions.hpp. Everything in this folder can be found. If there's another folder within it, we'd have to specify. So we could say folder slash, but everything in this include file can be found. Though, let's say we don't actually want to have this include folder here. We want to still have that header functions, and we still want it in that include folder, but we don't want to include it in our directories. That's fine. We can just go back here and path from our main.cpp file. So we just say / include / and then we don't have a folder. So / functions.hpp. But let's also say now we don't even want this include folder. We want functions to be in the same folder as src. We can do that as well. We drag in, move, we can delete this folder. And now instead of saying include, we can just say functions.hpp and it will find this HPP file. Let's quickly delete this functions.hpp. We don't need it. And back in here, to make things quicker, we can go up to line 9 and copy this down. Delete not in PNG and this first and, which I just noticed. This and right here is not capitalized, so we need to say and in caps. And we can come back down here. Let's add the end if. Inside here, we will say target, link, libraries, and then have our project name again, tutorial, and then public $SDL2 underscore libraries, and then SDL2 underscore image, SDL2 underscore image. This might not be the best way to do things, but it's how it's worked for me. And then MinGW 32. Now we can create an else for the people on Linux, copy this line down, and remove that MinGW 32. And now this program, when we compile it, should work on both Windows with MinGW and Linux. We have not set it up for Microsoft Visual Code or Apple, as usually I don't work with people doing either of those, so I haven't figured out how to do those. But this is pretty much our full makefile. As this is not intended to be a programming tutorial, I'm going to go to my GitHub, and this will be posted in the comments, and the main.cpp of this repo, we're just going to copy over. And to demonstrate that SDL image is working, we're going to want to copy over the image from this repository as well. So we go back here into the base, go into this res folder and click on logo.png, download. Feel free to use whatever logo you want as you're testing it out. This is just a logo that I created for my own project, so I know I won't get in trouble for using it. Right click, save image as, and logo is what we want. We can close out of Firefox. Now we create a new folder, call this res, and we don't want this in src, so we'll bring this to the main folder, move. And then Windows E to open up File Explorer, go to our downloads where we just got the image and drag it over to res. Lastly, we will want to copy this res folder into our build folder, so it's right next to our executable, and we will also want to copy over the DLLs we created when we installed both SDL and SDL image. So first, let's create a build folder. Let's do folder, build, and I have a copy out here of res, so that way if I accidentally delete everything in the build folder, I don't lose all of the resources that I have. So we can copy this and paste that in there. Now we press Windows E, we go to local disk C, program files x86, go to SDL2, bin and copy this SDL2 DLL over. Please make sure you don't remove it from this folder, as you will want to have a backup of this DLL in case you want to start another project or in case you accidentally delete the one in here. We can go back to our file explorer, go back to program files, x86, SDL2 image, the same process. Inside bin, we copy this DLL over into build. Really quick, I made two mistakes we need to correct. The first one is SDL image. This should have a 2 in front of it. Secondly, we should go back to extensions as we need to install CMake tools. So we install this here. Let's set up the project for CMake tools, that extension, in case the prompt didn't pop up or you're doing this later down the line and you dismiss the prompt, so you just know how to do it. So here we press Ctrl-Shift-P, CMake, and then we want to scan for kits, which probably won't show up anything. It did show up in my output, but it might not show anything. Now we press Ctrl-Shift-P again, CMake, select a kit. And here I'm going to select GCC 12.2, the one that we installed. Now we want to press Ctrl-Shift-P, CMake, target. So we want to set a build target. And here we have this tutorial that shows up, but we can also type out the target ourselves. So tutorial, I'm just going to hit enter so it autofills. And then we have Ctrl-Shift-P, CMake, debug target. So set a debug target. If we go to the main.cpp file and press F7, it should compile for us. And here you can see we got a tutorial.exe out. While making this video, apparently how I used to debug by pressing Ctrl F5 no longer exists. So let's set that up real quick, as a debugger is super helpful when you're trying to fix problems. So let's go back to our extensions and let's type code LLDB. So we can install this. We can go back to our file explorer, and if we press Ctrl F5 like we've done before, we'll get this is not supported. So we will open launch.json, and it got this for us. And here we can say, rather than executable file, build / and then tutorial.exe. Or whatever your project's name is, .exe. We save this, and now we should just be able to press F5, and we've got the debugger working. So if we go back to main, while the window's still open, let's put a breakpoint right here. Now we can look in and we can see, okay, here's the pointer to the logo. We've got the flags, we've got that it's running. Super helpful. If you have any issues while setting this up and are okay with using Discord, please come to my Discord channel, the link's in the description, and post in debugging, and when I have time, I will jump on and try and help you get things working.